Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our next panel discussion is about to begin.
All right, welcome back, delegates. It's like I never left and no one left the ballroom, so I guess you didn't need the break. But I'm glad to see everybody just catching up, making new friends, yes? Yes, very well done. And also catching up with the old folks here. Well, let me ask you, what drives progress? The evolving global economy reminds that, yes, capital and commerce are the drivers of progress. But here is an equally important question. What sustains progress? Amid shifting markets and complex supply chains, the next generation stands at the heart of continuity and change. A generation facing both unprecedented opportunity and growing uncertainty. True resilience is not built solely through investments or policies, but through education that nurtures values, critical thinking, and empathy. These enduring principles enable communities to remain grounded even as the world transforms around them. So with this in mind, the discussion now turns to how education can empower the youth to become adaptable, responsible, and value-driven leaders of the future. This is our session on equipping resilient future through education. And to get our conversation rolling, let me introduce our moderator. He is currently the president of Ayala Foundation Incorporated, the social development arm of Ayala Corporation, where he also serves as a board of trustees member and sits on multiple boards, including the Philippine Council for NGO Certification and the Association of Foundations. At Ayala Corporation, he was head of public policy and worked on strengthening the contribution of private enterprise to national development. He brings extensive expertise in public policy, governance, stakeholder engagement, and socio-economic development, having previously served as managing director of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and assistant secretary of the Department of Finance, leading the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program. He is known for his work in strengthening the role of private enterprise in national development, his expertise in governance and anti-corruption initiatives as a former World Bank governance specialist, and his leadership in bridging the public and private sectors for inclusive growth. Our moderator, Mr. Tony Lambino.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Gandang umaga po. Thank you for the very generous introduction, Kathy. I'm really here just to ask questions of our esteemed panelists. And as we begin this panel to explore how education is evolving globally and what that means for our work in the Philippines and in the region, let's begin with some introductory thoughts on financing and equity. Here's what we know about financing and investment in education. Investment expansion is uneven across education levels, from early childhood to tertiary, and between public and private enterprises. Emerging economies face acute challenges, such as limited public fiscal space and budgets, topics we've been discussing over the past 2 days, greater demand for innovation, and we've been talking about the jobs of the future in the 21st century, and the need to mobilize, allocate, and sustain funding. Private contributions such as student loans and household spending are highly relevant, but not always fully captured in the statistics. I'm glad to forecast that in this panel, we have a good example of an organization that's doing something about financing. On equity and inclusion, educational outcomes and labor market returns to individuals and households remain strongly tied to socioeconomic background and status, proficiency levels, and earlier access. Equity requires relevant, high-quality outcomes, especially digital, numeracy, and literacy skills for the 21st century. In developing countries, challenges to reaching learners in rural areas, lower-income families, and those without digital access or clear pathways to higher education and employment are particularly acute. So we all know these challenges and we all know these problems. What this panel is offering to all of us is hope. We are featuring individuals and leaders in the education space who have shown vision, creativity, and innovation despite all of the problems. They are exercising heroic and evidence-based action, and this hope that they bring to us, we can hold on to not in the future, but today. We can hold on to today, as you will hear from them, but also well into the future. So, allow me to introduce the first of the people who will bring us this sense of hope. Ms. Carmina Bayombong is the founder and CEO of Invested, spelled Invest Ed, the Philippines' leading student success platform, which has reached over 400,000 students through education financing, AI-driven coaching tools, and career support. She brings expertise in financial inclusion, behavioral science, and AI innovation in education, trained more than 10,000 youth across Asia in leadership and financial resilience. Carmina is known for pioneering AI innovations like Alvin and has been recognized globally as a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. Also an Obama Asia Pacific leader and one of the outstanding women in the nation's service, honored by the Philippine Senate. Let's all welcome Carmina, or Carbs for short. Attorney Geraldine Acuna-Sunshine is the founder and CEO of Khan Academy Philippines, the first international licensee of Khan Academy USA, which has reached 2.7 million students and over 10,000 teachers. Her expertise spans corporate law, alternative investments, social impact entrepreneurship, and the digital transformation of education through AI-driven learning tools tailored for, in the case of Khan Philippines, Filipino learners. She was recognized as Newsweek's Best of the Best in Education in 2024, winning Harvard's 2024 Innovation Prize and being named to Fast Company's 2025 Most Innovative Companies in Applied AI. Attorney Geraldine Acuna-Sunshine. Dr. Nanthaporn Seributra is the CEO of Starfish Education, a nonprofit organization driving educational transformation in Thailand that has impacted over 7.3 million learners. Her expertise spans learning innovation, educational management, technology integration, early childhood education, and teacher development. She is known for developing the STEAM design process, a learner-centered approach adopted by over 400 schools in Thailand, and for serving as an advisor to government agencies, educational organizations, and NGOs on equitable and accessible education. She told me just last night that she took on a new hat as advisor to the government of Bangkok, and is now spreading and scaling the innovations that they have piloted in Starfish in several hundred schools there. So Dr. Prey. So we have examples on stage of people who have made a major impact and demonstrating to us that the learning poverty experienced in so many parts of our region do not need to be experienced by the youth. In their schools, in their work, you will see that the learning outcomes are outliers relative to what was discussed previously. So this is, again, a panel of hope, and thank you for bringing that to this event. So my first question to all the panelists is about learning outcomes for the 21st century. What high-quality education outcomes do we need, given all the challenges we are facing that we've been discussing over the past 2 days in education and beyond? And what do we need globally? Responding to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's challenge for us to be global citizens with a global vision. So what do we need in terms of education globally? And maybe you could also speak to the contexts that you work in. And what is your organization's contribution toward achieving these learning outcomes? Can we start with Carmina?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning and almost afternoon. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my organization, InvestEd. At InvestEd, we solve a simple but life-changing problem, which is that every year, millions of college students in the Philippines drop out of school, not because they lack talent, but because they run out of money and support. As the Philippines' leading student success platform, we give students both. We give college student loans bundled with personalized coaching. And we did this through our platform is actually backed by AI models. First is Alvin AI, named after our first borrower. The AI predicts repayment performance and student success. And we also have Jade AI, another AI named after our borrower, which actually provides the personalized coaching. So because of this technology, we're able to lend to unbanked students safely, achieving the highest repayment rates and student satisfaction rates known in Southeast Asia student financing. So to date, our platform has reached almost 500,000 students, disbursed about $5 million in education loans, and helped students get placed in jobs 4 times faster than the national average. But we're just getting started. Our goal is to solve student success globally by 2035, so that every student, no matter their background, has the power to shape their own future. So to your question, Tony, I think we've seen a lot of things at InvestEd because we're actually the only, probably one of the few organizations tracking students from school to workforce. And we see a lot of data, right? And to your question, I think that where we're really seeing where schools can help and the most important student outcomes is really, number one, real-world problem-solving skills. And I think that is something that still can really be improved in how schools deliver these skills. So for example, adaptability to change, critical thinking skills, and so forth. These are very important in succeeding in today's job market. And in relation to helping our economy, it's really what also gets students placed in jobs faster. It's what a lot of employers are looking for. And the models that we actually made, there's a portion where we predict willingness to pay, where actually the predictors there are very related to what makes a good employee. And so that's like some of the things that we're seeing. Yeah.
No, so that's amazing, Carbs. You said in your first sentence to lend safely. Yeah. And so it's safe for invested, but it's also safe for the borrower because the likelihood of employment and income is high, right? And so you're balancing that,
Exactly.
that safety on both sides of the lending equation and borrowing equation. Thank you so much. Geraldine?
Good morning, everyone. So continuing from what Carmina said, thank you so much for providing the financing that we need to help students get an education. Khan Academy is here to provide the content and deliver the materials so students can actually learn in an equitable way. So Khan Academy, I don't know if we have a slide up that we can quickly
Yes,
show.
can we move to Geraldine's first slide, please?
But it's an award-winning, scalable AI edtech-enabled platform whose mission is to provide a free, quality education for anyone, anywhere. And we have 150 million learners all over the world, primarily using U.S. curriculum, because you can access Khan Academy on a smartphone with any kind of connectivity. So you don't need a fancy device. You can connect via smartphone or any phone or any tab device that connects to internet. The reason why we started Khan Academy Philippines, so we're the first licensee of Khan Academy US. And when I was on the Harvard board, because I was first Filipino on the Harvard board, I was on the committee that gave Sal Khan, the founder of Khan Academy, an honorary degree. He is a Harvard alum, so am I. And I said, Sal, thank you so much for closing learning gaps during COVID, but we really could use you in the Philippines. Because at that time, we saw 2018 and 2022 PISA scores, and they were abominable. And as someone like me who is very passionate and engaged about education, I could not, in good conscience, do nothing. And here was the opportunity to talk to Sal and ask him if he would grant a license for us to show Khan US how, I'll just say, underutilized the platform is. And so I said, my plan is to localize the platform. So we have US curriculum and Philippine curriculum on there, so we can go into the schools. So this is what we're doing. This is what we're offering. And other countries are now looking at the Philippine model to see if they can do Khan Academy for their countries as well. But we are helping teachers, students, and parents, because we have a portal for parents as well to monitor their child's progress in school, no matter where that parent is. We have a lot of OFWs who access the platform to see their child's progress. We are helping them through their learning journey for free.
Thank you, Geraldine. And Ayala Foundation has piloted Khan
Yes.
Academy rollout in Zambales, in some far-flung public elementary schools. And what we learned from the teachers and the students, by using Khan, they've reduced absenteeism by significant numbers. And the teachers tell us the students want to go to school. They actually want to come because they enjoy learning.
It's fun. You know, learning should be fun. Learning should be fun. And yes,
why not?
yes,
Please.
yes.
Super agree.
Right? You know, and we're kind of all nerds here on the stage, but I would recommend that you go onto your app, your phones, download Khan Academy, play with it, and invite us to your schools. We will come and we will train, and you will see the magic of EdTech and the power of education.
Yeah. Just a quick note, 12 weeks of Khan Academy plus intensive teacher training in San Marcelino, Zambales, doubled math scores. 12 weeks. Yeah, and we're going to pilot that even more. Yeah. Dr. Prey.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So it's so nice to be back here in Manila. So my name is Prad, as Tony has introduced. Just a little bit about my organization, so just to set the context. So Starfish Education is an implementing foundation. We based in Singapore and in Thailand. And we have a lot of programs around education. This year, we actually celebrate our 20th anniversary. So we've been here for quite a long time. And we've been doing different programs. And at this point, we have, there's some programs that we did in the past, but then we already sunset them today. We still have our first program, which is a school. It's a K-6 school for underserved families. And we use the school as a pilot school for our own innovation. And we also have 2 EdTech products, which is an online learning platform called Starfish Labs. Starfish Class, which is an authentic assessment tool. We have an academy where we work with school leaders, teachers, and public school systems to implement our innovations in their schools. These are some of the programs that we have. So to the question that what is the learning outcome that we are actually looking at? So Thailand is an aging society, so we have less children. So therefore, we really have to look at the quality of the children that we have. So when they grow up, that would be the main human capital of the country. And the situation in Thailand, it's very interesting. Middle-income families, they don't really have a lot of children. So we have a lot of children, or we have a lot of teen pregnancies. So, in terms of the economic lookout, it's not very promising. The situation in education system is also very interesting, where you have a lot of international schools as businesses really, flourishing in a lot of big cities. People who can afford to buy education, they will move the children out of public school system to private school system or international school system. So this is the space that we are at. The problem in Thailand is not about the access of education. It's more about the quality. We have a lot of schools that we have less and less children where they have to close down. So it's not really the access, it's the quality. So this is how we think about, what kind of education that we would need for the students, what kind of future competencies that we are looking at. So we really focusing on those, future skills like problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, as well as social-emotional learning skills, which is big for, our children. Things like self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, resilience, flexibility, and all that. And these skills need to be cultivated from a very young age. And this is something that we're trying to set up the education system that really provide this kind of skills to anyone in the country, not just the one that can afford it.
Thank you, Dr. Prey. So, the ability to problem solve is something that can really make an impact on the life of an individual if they experience it early, right? And being creative is not something you suddenly learn when you're an adult. These are things that should be inculcated and cultivated early. But I'm curious as to the thoughts of the panel. What's the value of creativity, problem solving, resilience in preparing for the future? These are some of the things I remember you said during our preparatory call for this panel. Can you share some examples of this and how it can be done well? Maybe we can start with Dr. Prey, because you were on the topic already.
Yes, creativity and problem solving, all of these skills would happen only when the students or learners allow the space to make it happen. In the traditional classrooms where students don't really have the opportunity to ask questions, to solve problems, they only told what they're supposed to do and then follow the instruction. There's no way that, they will have that space to try new things. But when we talk about problem solving and creativity, we really have to put the students or the learner in the situation where they have to try and they're allowed to fail. And this is very important in a lot of classroom settings, that we don't allow enough space for the children to fail. Or even as parents, when we look at our children and then they fail on something, we don't want them to fail, that we don't want them to get hurt. But people learn when they're hurt as well as, when they're successful. So to set up that kind of learning environment for the children, it's very important. But that also challenged the whole traditional pedagogies in the classrooms, where you don't really have the space for the children. For the STEAM design process, for example, the model that I came up with, it's a very simple 5 steps for the students to do in the classroom. Start from asking questions, imagine things, plan things, create things, reflect and redesign. So these are very simple verbs which are not very simple in the classroom setting, because that means that the teachers actually have to let go a lot of control in the classroom. So in order for us to really cultivate all this problem-solving creativity for our students, so that when they face real challenges, not when they grow up, they face challenges now. You know, as a young child, you know, growing up in every age, I think we all have different kind of challenges. But you don't want to protect them so that they don't face any difficulties in their life. You want them to be in the space where they can fail, and then you can help them. And that's how students learn and children learn. So I think these are the skills that we are looking at and trying to make sure that they are equipped when they grow up, as well as all the knowledge that we, because when we talk about the curriculum, right, a lot of the time it's still that content-based, which I still think it's somewhat relevant, but it's not the only thing that is relevant. So yeah, so this kind of skills development would only happen in a real world situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Prey. So to fail fast, fail forward, and learn from the experience, almost like learning how to ride the bike. You don't really learn until you fall, no? But get up and muster the courage to keep going. Geraldine?
Okay, this is easier said than done, all right? And I think we all know this because there's a lot of this that's cultural and depends on the incentives of our systems. So I know I'm ed tech, but I'm also a very big proponent of pedagogy and teaching teachers, you know, ways to be the model to show students. Because we have done, during our trainings, one of the important things when you talk about success, right, are metrics and data, but also growth mindset. To have a growth mindset is to know that you can evolve, that you can change, that you can get better, that you're not stuck. And when we have gone out into the field, we have seen a lot of teachers who view themselves as stuck. And even though they may not notice it, when they start to ask questions, they're like, wow, that's how I think. I don't have growth mindset pala. So if you don't have growth mindset, your student will not have a growth mindset, okay? And also, Khan Academy teaches mastery over memorization. So it's really important to have mastery-based learning. To be creative, to get to the next level of problem-solving, critical thinking, you have to have mastery over basic math, English, writing, reading. Get the basics down. Get the basics down. And then you can do creative thinking and problem solving, but it's very hard to do that when you don't have the basic Lego blocks. Okay? So on Khan Academy, we have an AI tutor that is a safe AI tutor. It doesn't hallucinate. There are guardrails. Very, very important when you're dealing with students. It never gives the answer. It uses Socratic method, which is what we're not used to that in the Philippines or maybe other parts of Asia. So it will ask questions and keep asking the student to think about it, and encouraging the student to get to the answer. Okay, there's that. If the student inputs anything inappropriate into the AI, it will shut down. And it sends the entire chat to the teacher. So it's amazing. I'm telling you guys, we have an amazing product. And to really use it. No, I'm serious. I'll just quickly share that we did a pilot last summer called Matalino in 7 schools, 3 cities in the Philippines, Quezon City, Balanga, and Valenzuela. And we took the lowest scoring math students in between 6th grade and 7th grade. We did it over the summer. We actually couldn't use teachers because DepEd doesn't allow us to do that. So we used our facilitators. And over 5 weeks, these students who are supposedly remedial went from an average of 4% to 74% in math proficiency in 5 weeks. Yes. twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday, 2 hours each. So what does that mean? That means that there's an issue with the way we deliver. We're delivering education, okay? So marrying technology with good teaching, that's where the magic is. And that's why we are so honored to be partnering with the Ayala Foundation on this. The pedagogy and technology, we can take our countries really far into the future.
Thank you, Geraldine. Yeah, Carbs?
Yeah, oh my gosh. So, so I think I'm sensing a theme here, which I will, one thing I learned from more than a decade in this work, no, is that education is a supply chain of sorts. So if their solutions were in the hands of all the students in the Philippines, I wouldn't have much work at invested, right? But the reason why I did invested also is because in this supply chain, I felt like that last mile, the college student loans and coaching, right before entering the job market, there were too few players there, right? So to your question, Tony, what is the value of these skills? The ethos of my company is really funding and supporting human potential for economic mobility. And that really is the value. The value of these skills is employability and faster income progression. And they already talked about how that kind of unfolds, these skills, how it's taught, how it's learned in the earlier parts of the educational supply chain. But let me come from my experience, because we're kind of like, I guess I would say Invested is kind of like the one trying to do like the band-aid of all the college students right now who went through broken education systems. Because the reality, guys, is when you're born poor, you're predisposed to go to bad schools because you can't afford the better schools, right? And so that just carries on and compounds up to the time that you reach college. And I'll tell you some of the things that we're experiencing in terms of like really instilling at the college level these like very important economic mobility skills when most of the masses of our Filipino students did not go through like the best schools, right? So we have we have a job placement coach at Invested, which is literally this coach has a KPI to place students in jobs 45 days. And with the onset of AI, we're like, okay, great, this is gonna help our coaches no longer need to tell them how to improve their resume. But like one thing we're seeing is like even with AI, we teach the student like, okay, you prompt AI this way to improve your resume, and like tell AI to like improve it in this way, right? And sometimes the students that are job placement coaches, they still come back with really bad resumes, right? And so like we're seeing actually in our data, there's two profiles of college students there's the basic, where they did not get these kinds of like pedagogy, kind of like teaching, where their problem-solving skills and critical thinking skills are not like at college level. And the coaching we provide these students, and unfortunately, that's the majority we're seeing right now. And like after they graduate from college, employers are gonna catch this problem, right? And that's not what we want, right? So these basic type of students, it's honestly, coaching is a bit of spoon feeding. You keep telling them information and it takes them a while to improve, right? So that's the thing that we really need to improve. And we're seeing at Invested that needs to start in the basic education level, right? But the happy part is that there's advanced students. We're also seeing this data where we're coaching some students, the things they're asking our job placement coaches, how do I plan my career for the next 5 years? Like, how do I get to this income in like 3 years? It's very strategic, right? And so even those who come from low income backgrounds, there are these advanced profiles. So it's a very interesting thing to understand, right? If they both went through the same school that maybe had a mid-tier kind of like teaching approach, not the best, not also the worst, right? Why do you have these basic profiles? Why do you have these advanced profiles, right? So that's what we're seeing. And yeah, ultimately, I think for all of you here, we're all industry leaders. We have an ability to influence. I think main points I would say is, let's think of education as a supply chain. And that's why it's very important to attack it in a very systemic, collaborative approach. And ultimately, the purpose of that is to give these students skills so that they have economic mobility and so that our employers have a better workforce and more skilled workforce for a better economy.
How about the human side of that? So employability and income, all very important, of course. But how about self-actualization?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. A lot of the students we coach actually are also pretty lost. The funny thing with Philippines is part of the supply chain is selection of pathways. Like what degree or school do these students select? Honestly, guys, it's still myth-based. So when we ask students, why did you become an accountant? Oh, because my aunt has a really big house, she's really rich, and she's an accountant. So I want to be an accountant. So we're seeing like Filipino parents and students, they're looking at their closest, relative or peer, and whoever they aspire, they look at their degree in school, and then that's what they select, right? So, but when they get to college, they realize it's not that simple. And so what we're seeing is the root cause of the problem is lack of credible source of data for parents and students to make these decisions on pathways, which relates to their self-actualization kind of goals in like really learning what they want to do. So our enrollment trends are still those courses that usually parents and students see like make a lot of money fast. But it's based on kind of outdated data. And then when they're entering the job market, the parents and students we're seeing are a little bit shocked that that's not the case anymore with the pathway that they chose. So yeah, that's what and then comes we have like coaches who coach students on like, they're kind of lost on what to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Carb. So I'm hearing a balance between letting go in the classroom or in your coaching, but also being strict and structured on the basics especially. Getting those right, getting those down so that the growth mindset happens on a strong foundation. Okay, let's geek out a little bit. Geraldine said there are geeks on stage. So how do you know your interventions are working? How do you do your evaluation and how do you embed that into the ways of doing things? Geraldine, can we start with you?
So two things. You cannot advance in something you don't measure. So it has to be measurable. For us, it's data, looking at data and metrics, not just anecdotes. So two things, data and growth mindset that I mentioned earlier. You can also measure that, but some of it is also, feeling, and again, you can measure that through surveys and whatnot. But in the Matalino example, the students who were branded as remedial were shocked at the end of our session that they were not. And the parents were also shocked. And they said, matalino palang anak ko, kayang-kaya. And it's true. In one of the classrooms in QC, so the numbers I gave you were average. One of the classrooms in QC went from 0% proficiency to 85%.
Sorry, Geraldine, 0% proficiency means
In
zero
math.
on the score on the test.
Yes, on the score,
right? Yeah.
and to 85. And I showed this to Mayor Joy Belmonte of QC, and she said, these kids are not, are not dumb, or they're not really remedial. They actually have the capacity to learn. And when we, quote unquote, had our graduation, the parents dressed up because they were so proud of their child and we gave certificates. That is a change in the way you view yourself. The change in growth mindset. That is really, really important.
Can I ask something about
Yeah.
this? Because we've had the AI theme sort of weaving through the sessions of this conference. And there have been some cautionary points regarding AI. However, in this case, I believe it was AI-enabled growth for these students. Could you
Yeah.
say a little bit about that?
Yes, so it's called Conmigo AI, and this is the product that we have that has guardrails. This is very, very important if you're going into schools. You can't just, this is not ChatGPT or whatever, okay? This is a very different thing because we have been cognizant of the need to protect our students also. So how can you learn with technology without, you know, the downsides or de-risking on the downsides? Because these are tools, right? And so you need to be able to use them wisely. So other modules, because we keep adding modules, right? This is what we do, Khan Academy Philippines. What are the needs of the Filipino learner? If you come to me and say, this is what we need, I will work with you to make this more Filipinized and localized than one could even imagine. But meeting the needs is making sure that it's a safe place for us to grow. So one of the modules that I want to add onto the platform eventually is how can we be socially responsible digital citizens? I think it's really important for our students who are using more and more technology to understand the ethical use and boundaries and responsibilities of using technology. So this is very, very important. I don't think it's taught enough, and it should go into the schools. But going back to the measurement, because I want to go back to that, is data. So we are very, very data-driven. On our platform, the student can see metrics on their own. So it's gamified, so you want to get the crown if you master these math concepts. So sometimes we don't mandate like how this is used in schools. So sometimes it's kind of fun. We'll go into a public school actually, and the students will ask their principal, "Ma'am, can we please open the computer lab during lunch because we want to play and do more math?" Like that's the kind of stuff we want to see. You know, if you're going to play a game, do it with math and make it fun. So the students have their own data. The teachers also have data of the entire class. And because we have to abide by privacy laws, both in the Philippines and the US, we also provide anonymized data to show the Secretary of Education what is going on in the entire country and where interventions can be made.
So when the teachers see that data, they know which students are ahead.
Yeah, so I'll
which
give you an
students-
example.
yeah.
I'll give you an example of how we use data real time, okay, in the classroom. So let's say everyone is on their device and it's fourth grade math and the teacher says, okay, everyone go to module 4, we're gonna do fractions together. Okay, so the students are now on module 4, none of the questions are the same. You cannot make copia. You can't copy someone else's answer because it's not about memorization. It is about mastery of the concepts. If the teacher wants the same questions for all the students, he or she can also do that. But all the students are on their devices answering the module. The teacher has a dashboard with every single student. He or she can see real time as the students are working who's ahead, who's behind, and who is on point. If you're behind, the teacher now who has 50 or 40 to 50 students per class can allocate their time more efficiently by spending more time on the students who need help and maybe doing things like having the advanced students teach those who need more help, so then they're reinforcing their learning. And then with our AI tool, can give differentiated homework per student on what they need to master for that module. You can also flip the classroom so that the students can do the work at home. The teacher can see real time what the students are doing. And then the next day, if the entire class has mastered, you don't need to go through that module in as much detail as possible. So this is how we work with data to accelerate education.
So technology-enabled differentiated instruction, including homework.
Correct.
Dr. Prey.
24/7.
Yes. And they can keep working on it even at home. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are hundreds of courses, so if you have a precocious child, they can go and learn so many other things on the platform.
Thanks, Geraldine. Dr. Prey, how do you know your interventions are working?
Yeah, I agree with Geraldine. We tracked everything. We made sure everything. So maybe can I just have my second slide? So we do have a lot of solutions, Starfish Education. We have the school, we have the online learning platform, Starfish Labs. We have a Starfish Class, which is an authentic assessment tool, focusing on the skill development in the classrooms. We have different innovations that we use, like the makerspace, project-based learning. So we do, this is such a big slide, but I just want to show you like these are all the programs that we have currently in 2025. So we have the school, the 3R model is a literacy program where we help the students with Thai literacy, Thai and English and maths. The Makerspace program, Starfish class, which is an authentic assessment tool. We have the Makerspace Learning Center where we work with other educators about, the innovation. The Labs and online learning platform, we currently have around 400,000 users. About 70% of our users are teachers, and about 20% are secondary students, and about 10 are teachers. We have social media, learning hub. So all of this program we track using the model that we created. We call it the meaningful education. So in everything that we do, Starfish Education, all the solutions that we have, it comes down to the framework, meaningful education. Because if the education is not meaningful, and then we define the word meaningful as a framework where we can track this in terms of the, when we do the evaluation. So U comes from the word useful. So we ask our beneficiaries if they find, when they engage with our solution, we ask them whether they feel that it's useful for them. Is it help them with problem solving? Is it real world? Is it impactful? Is it self-directed and experiential? So these are the 5 key things for us at this point, and we track everything based on these 5 indicators. So we can see, like in 2025, different programs have different level, right, the scores that they get. And this is something that we use to see if any of our programs or solutions are working, what things that we need to tweak and change. And these things, honestly, really help me, get up in the morning and go to work. Because as a nonprofit, we're implementing a foundation. Nobody tells us to do anything, right? We don't have a donor, we don't have anyone to answer for except for this. We have to answer for our beneficiaries. And if we don't track these things, you're kind of lost. Like, why are we doing things that we are doing? So these are very important for us. I always say we are impact-driven. And we also use all of this data to help us. But beyond these numbers that we see, there are real people. There are real students, there are real parents, and we hear a lot of stories when we go visit the schools. There are around 400 schools, and we just added another 400. So currently we have about 800 schools that are using our innovations with our coaches helping them. But then there are also other schools, like almost 25,000 schools, 100,000 schools that actually interact with us online. But when we go to the school, we always hear, I think very similar to the story that we have heard this morning, students, they do want to come to school because they feel like they are included. They're having fun. And I hear from the teachers all the time that they say, oh, I never knew that, the students is capable of doing this. Because they never really allowed the space for them to do anything. And when for example, the makerspace, for us, when we talk about makerspace, this is a concept that I learned about makerspace about 10 years ago. I was working with a lot of international schools then just to help them set up the makerspace, with all the 3D printer, laser cutter, and all like somewhat high technology that you can have in the makerspace. And I was thinking, how do I make sure that every child in Thailand have access to this? How do I do that? And then I think, the concept of makerspace for me, it's not really the space first, but it's more of the mental space. The mental space that, you allow to try new things, you're allowed to fail, you're allowed to, solve problems. And this is a space where you want to have for the teachers and so also for the students. And with that concept becomes the STEAM design process. With this process, you can do it anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the, in a high-tech makerspace. It could be like under a tree. If you have, somewhat the materials that you have that you can find. And we find that the makerspace that the schools are implementing are very different from the schools in the rural area and the mountain, very different than in the city. And whatever projects that they're making, it's okay to be different because the context is very different. You don't really need a 3D printer, in a mountain, for example. If you don't need it, you don't need it, right? So, but it would be good if you have it, but it shouldn't be the first thing that comes to your mind. Because whenever we go to the school, it's like, oh, we don't really have the money to do this, so this is not an option for us. So when we start with the concept, we start with this mental space, we can actually make this into many, many schools. So just to look at the overall impact, the data that we have, I think it's yes, the number, but also, you actually have to go out there and see and hear stories and just to, because there's no data or like no surveys in the world that can capture everything that is, real. So you actually need both to do that.
Yeah, so while you do track the metrics, you also look for qualitative examples, no, and exemplars, if you will. So what I'm hearing from our three panelists is that they've built, if you'll forgive a biblical reference, Noah's Arks in contexts where education systems are not performing as well as they should. However, we're also hearing that these arcs are pretty big, right? We're not talking about a few hundred students here. We're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions. And so that's impact. But my question is, where do we say we've reached our scale ambition? At what point? And for Carbs and for Attorney Geraldine, for the Philippines in particular, what is scale for you? What would be enough? And for Dr. Pry, what would be enough in Thailand in terms of the scale of your work? Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Carbs.
Interestingly, this is actually related to the impact measurement discussion we were just having. No? So, for context, we have 110 million Filipinos. 30 million are youth. No, these are 15 to 30-year-olds in higher education, entering higher education, in higher education, or pursuing upskilling or postgrad. So if you remove those who actually don't need financing or support, maybe we're lucky to go through these good schools, have enough financial support, you're left with 20 million youth. So it's a very large market in need, right? So for me, as an impact entrepreneur, my philosophy, go big or go home. So I believe that great impact is not just a great solution, but putting it in the hands of millions. So we're at Invested, we're gunning for 1 million students per year funded 5 years from now.
Okay, you're close to 500,000.
Well, that's reached. So we're close to 1 million in terms of like the students on our platform.
Okay.
But what we want to do is like to be able to fund at least 1 million per
Okay.
year. Yeah, we're actually on track and working towards that like in 5 years.
Okay.
And can I just add something? So, but it's not just the numbers, it's also the impact, right? So for InvestEd, we're very serious about being an impact business. It starts even with the governance. We treat our impact metrics equally to our financial metrics, even on the board level. And our impact metrics is pretty simple: SDG 1, no poverty, and SDG 4, quality education. No poverty for us is we don't want to just throw around financial inclusion as a word. We want our loan book to actually reflect that. So we actually have a KPI where at least 70% of our loan book should be low income to poor. And with that, we have a target at least 20% household income increase after they get their first paycheck. And we're actually hitting 111% average as of now. And how do we know? So there could be like a lot of factors related to that, right? But impact essentially is what would have happened otherwise if Invested wasn't there. And for the like lower middle class that we serve, it's really less financial stress for their family. But where we really hit home is in low income to poor segments. They say they would have dropped out without the financing or extended 1 to 2 years in schooling, right? And then with the quality education SDG, we measure gainful employment. So we're actually hitting 90% gainful employment, and which is very good in terms of benchmarks. And our graduates earn 10% higher on their first paycheck compared to their non-invested peers. So we're also monitoring these cohorts. So to me, when would we have like succeeded? At least 1 million students per year funded. So that's approximately maybe 5 million a year provided in the platform. And then being able to still hit those impact metrics at that scale. So it's really balancing that.
Thank you, Carbs. For Gerald, please. Actually, for Geraldine and for Dr. Prey, if I can add a sub-question, because I know Attorney Geraldine has brought CAN to the Department of Education of the Philippines. In fact, the official curriculum is already in CAN Philippines, and Dr. Prey now serves as an advisor to the governor of Bangkok to scale Starfish Academy and Starfish schools. So in your equation for scale, what should the government's role be as well? If you could add that. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. So when you have a big problem, you need a bold solution. And we in the Philippines know that we are facing an education crisis. Gonzalo from the World Bank, described some of those numbers in terms of literacy and numeracy. And for us right now, technology is really the only way to scale. Because we can deliver quality education content quickly and everywhere. All you need is a phone and Wi-Fi, and I think the government, this is where the government is coming in, is helping facilitate that. If we can show, I just want to show our scale, if we can show that slide on our scale, we are only 2 years old, okay? We are a 2-year-old organization, and in the short amount of time, our first year, we did a pilot, school year 2023 to 24, we were in 34 schools in 2 regions, NCR and Dumaguete, because we wanted to do something outside NCR. School year 2024 to 25, we were in over 1,500 schools and counting. And this year, we want to go into a minimum of 3,000 schools. We are currently in 17 regions. So we're missing BARM, but we're going to go into BARM. And really, we couldn't do this without the partnership of the Department of Education, because the thing that differentiates us from other platforms is the Philippine curriculum is approved by DepEd. So we don't put anything on the platform, a Philippine curriculum that is not approved by DepEd. There's also the US curriculum, so you can do both. But for us to go into the Philippine schools, there's a certain proficiency of subject matter and modules that you need to have, and teachers can just follow along, so we make it very easy. So our partnership with DepEd matters a lot, and the other thing that we are working on the government with is infrastructure. Helping, and this is bayanihan, guys. We really need to be all working together. So we are working with the private sector, especially our BPO companies, to donate equipment. And these are still working. They're really good, and we're deploying them into the Khan Academy schools. So some of our partners, will ask us, well, how do we know that you're actually using the devices? Well, we have data. So we can go into a school and we can track usage. And guess what? If you're a donor to a school and those devices are turning into decoration, which they should not be, and not really utilized, we will take those devices and move them to a school that really wants and needs them. I just want to share really quickly, I'm a big believer of there's a will, if there's a will, there's a way. And we have a school in Manila that was deficient in infrastructure, and the parents were so adamant about their kids getting on Khan and have us training that they gave their kids their phones and data. And that school right now is one of our best performing schools, to the point where the government was like, we should help because they're helping themselves. But sometimes this is a story of the Filipino, right? But we can
So-
do it together,
So it's a PPP partnership.
100%.
Public, private, and family. Dr. Prey?
Okay, I'm learning something new today. Yes, I think scaling is not about numbers. It's not only about numbers. For me, it's because we've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, initially we thought, yeah, good numbers, we really want to have like as many numbers or as many zeros as possible. But then I realized that it's not all about the number. It's more about the depth and sustainability. So, tracking numbers of users are very easy, right? I mean, if that you engage with the platform, then, but what really matters is what happens when you're not there anymore. What happens when you don't have, our coaches hand-holding you anymore? And that is a crucial question in that there's a lot of projects that we've done in the past, right? Maybe by ourselves, maybe with other partners. But then when the project finished, it's almost like everything is gone. And then I was thinking, like, hey, what did we do, for the past 2 years? Why did we work so hard for nothing? Now it's almost like everything is gone. So I really have to shift the mindset of myself and also the team. That because in Thailand, people move around a lot. Like teachers, school leaders, they do move around. So if you say, okay, you work with like 10 schools in the school district, but then all the school principals in the next 3 years, they all move away. Would that mean that your work meant nothing? Did it just, disappear or vanish? I refuse to believe that. So I said, okay, as a foundation, we are not like affiliated with, the government. If that school leader or if that teacher is still teaching and he's still working, I think there's still impact that we have. And it sometimes, and a lot of times now, teachers, they do move around, school principals, they move around, they do come back to us. They said, you know what, we just moved to the new school. Can you please come back and help my new school, to take on the innovation? And when I see this, it's all about the community that we provide for them. It's about the agency that these school leaders or teachers have, that they really want to take this somewhere else that they go. So I think in terms of the impact and then the scale, there's so many dimensions that we can look at. We can look at sort of like the surface one, right? All the numbers, but then also like the sustainability and then the depth of the innovation. Then we really think about how do we, as a small foundation, how do we make sure that all of the things that we do still have an impact in a bigger scale. So you need to work with the policymakers, right? How do we actually embed your innovations or your solutions in the policy, in the teacher framework, in the culture of the school? And when I look at this, I plan different layers. So it's bottom up. So we work with the schools, they see good innovations. Then the policymaker got really interested in the program. Then, they want to support, and then, I do top down. So I think the long-lasting or the most sustainable effort, has to come from the government. Because, as a private organization, you cannot, this is the job of the government. Right? You do things that they don't do yet. You do things that they feel like maybe it's not possible to do, but then you lead the way. Yeah. But then after that, you really have to integrate this into the system.
So you can also take risks that the government can't take right away. But
Yes.
when they work, that's when
Absolutely.
government can come in and institutionalize. We have questions from the online system, but before that, does anyone in the room have a burning question? Oh, we have someone dancing over there. Yeah. Okay. You get to ask your question. Please introduce yourself, your organization. Ask your question with a question mark at the end.
Okay. My name is Katz Navarro. I'm with FINMA Education, so all of this resonates a lot. But I was looking at the title, A Resilient Future, and what makes the future bleak for me is not really the economic mobility of our kids, but fascism. So my question is, I work in the tangents that education and activism creates. And my work is primarily with the poor. So I often hear hope, to Tony's point. Hope is our ulam. But if there's one aspect that needs hope, it's in this world where civic spaces are diminishing with the rise of authoritarianism. I hear how you use education as a means to economic mobility, but how do you go beyond that and educate especially the underrepresented and underserved, to hope, but also concretely work towards advocating for democracy, human rights, and all that good stuff? We do that in FinMa Ed, but I would love to hear if there's a more efficient way to do it, because it's a lot of groundwork.
Thank you.
So maybe there's a tech way that you can recommend to make it more efficient.
Thank you. Did you say your name was Kath?
Cats.
Cats.
Yeah,
Thank you, Cats.
cats.
Ambassador Quisha has a question as well. Maybe we can collect 3 questions and then let the panel go at it. Yeah.
I wish to commend the 3 of you, our panelists, for your really outstanding accomplishments. Let me address these questions to Filipinas, Attorney Geraldine and Carmina. And Geraldine, you mentioned earlier that you cannot expect the students to do critical thinking or problem solving if they don't have the basics. And unfortunately, that's a major problem the Philippines faces. As you are well aware, the learning poverty incidence in the Philippines is very, very high. According to the World Bank's 91%. And the second major problem is that 30% of our students' population are stunted. So if you were I would address this to the 2 of you, if you were to be engaged by the Department of Education as advisors, how would you tackle these major problems? One is how to prevent it from continuing, and second is how do you help those kids who have been affected? Because unless they are helped, they face a very bleak future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And last question from the online space. How can this is from Anne-Marie Vertusio, Vice President for Administration of UERM. How can national and local education systems be redesigned to better withstand and adapt to future disruptions such as pandemics or weather disturbances? Okay, so the first question from Katz, Carbs really wanted to answer it, so
I love
go
that
for it.
question. You know, I got into education, but before that, I was in anti-corruption work. And why? Well, one thing is I love spreadsheets, so finance for me was a little bit more of a fit. Instead of, that's a personal reason. But the second thing is, you know, what I learned is that like here in the Philippines, money equals power. Right? And in a lot of let's just say bad governments, you might say, there is that income inequality trend, right? And that's why I love working in education, because I really feel that that is like the best long-term solution to like a more equal, and a more democratic kind of, you know, and a less divided kind of economy. Because, you know, for money to not be equal to power, that we need to solve this income inequality gap. And the only way to do that is to like increase the educational attainment of our people. So that is really my view on that. And again, I think that's why I went back more like private sector approach. But like really all parties have to work together. Yeah.
Thank you, Carbs. Attorney Geraldine, on the question from the ambassador, how do we advise the government?
We have so many problems. As you know, in this country and globally. And, you know, if you just, again, you know, Ambassador, as you said, you know, there's poverty issues, stunting, malnutrition, we had COVID, we have typhoons, you know, and when you close schools, that's learning loss. And it just compiles. But, you know, when I start to feel overwhelmed, I think about what Teddy Roosevelt said, which is do what you can with what you have wherever you are. And I think if all of us did our share, we could make such a big dent into this problem. And that's why I love the notion of bayanihan. I am doing my share here by providing a free, quality education for anyone, anywhere. And again, given what I've seen in our schools, if there's a will, there's a way. If you want to make this happen, we can make it happen. And I'm here, and I left the private sector to do social impact work because I really believe it's my time and it's our time to do our share, to live a life of meaning and purpose by giving back to this country where I was born and that I love. And I cannot, in good conscience, be involved in higher ed or any kind of education and not give back to the Philippines. That's why I'm here.
Thank you, Attorney Geraldine. Dr. Prey, how can we redesign our education systems to be more resilient to disruptions and pandemics and weather disturbances?
Yeah, I think it comes down to professional development of teachers, of school leaders, of policymakers. I think the education system it's one of the systems that can change, has the most difficulty to change or adapt, right? Because it's so structured. It's also, sometimes when a school wants to create a new curriculum, it would take 5 years, 3 years just to revise the curriculum. But as we all know, today, 5 years time, 3 years time, so many things happen. And the things that you wanted to create 3 years ago may not be relevant today. So I think to have that mindset that people have to learn quickly and be able to fail and be able to try new things and put a lot of resources into professional development is crucial. Professional development that we see of the teachers today, maybe it's outdated, maybe it's not relevant to them. If we can really look at this particular, topic of professional development and make it relevant, put more money into it. A lot of time that we talk about technology, the devices, a lot of the countries, deploy devices without the budget for PD, and that is just shocking to me. Like, how do you actually do that? And this is something that you really have to think about when you want to implement new things, or even like just keep up with, the fast changing world.
Thank you, Dr. Prey. Look, we are almost out of time. The 1 hour and 15 minutes flew by very quickly. That's really a testament to how engaging and magnetic our panel is this morning or now this afternoon. If you'll indulge a suggestion, there are a number of questions online. We will share all of these questions with the panel and then ask the panel to provide some responses, and maybe we'll ask AIM to find a way to share the answers back with everyone. We have a few more minutes left. Can we please put the last slide on the screen as we ask our panelists for a last word from each of them. But this is really how we can all work together. It's a proposal to adopt a school and roll out a digital and teacher training intervention. You can adopt a school in your area, in an area where your office is located, or your factory, or because it's close to your heart for whatever reason. It can have an intensive educator training component, a digital lab if you would like to donate one, but it's not necessary. You can actually use smartphones of the parents, and an AI-enabled catch-up session like what Geraldine talked about. No? So this is in different parts of the Philippines. There are more than 70,000 public elementary schools. So there are many opportunities to roll this out. If you scan that, it will bring you to a sheet and there's contact information. So with that, a last word from each of our panelists. Dr. Prey.
Yes, I think the problems that we face is just so many that sometimes you think like you cannot, it's overwhelming. Right? Now that I'm here from Starfish Education, I'm just gonna have to tell you a very short story of Starfish. It comes from a story where a boy is on the beach and there's so many starfish dying because of the low tide. There's an older man walk by the beach and then asked the boy, what's he doing? The boy said, I'm just trying to save the starfish. So he was trying to throw the starfish back to the sea one by one. And the older man said, that will not make any difference. There's so many of them dying. But the boy said, it will make a difference to this one. So I think this is a principle that we have. With so many problems that we have, we cannot solve everything. We cannot help everyone. But the one life that we touch will surely make a difference to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pei. But you are definitely helping more than one. Geraldine.
My last comment is education has the power to change lives. It definitely changed mine. So please join us in transforming the landscape of Philippine education together, because together we can do it.
Thank you. Carbs?
Mine is an acronym. So SEF. So I think that's the three things I want to leave. Solving education problems, we think about it as a supply chain. And then E is evidence. A lot of why it's difficult to solve is lack of evidence about what is causing these problems across the supply chain, and we need to invest in building evidence. And F is fragmentation. So we need to collaborate, because a big part of the root cause also in supporting our young people, which is our future, is that these parts of the supply chain need to be communicating constantly. So SEF, supply chain, evidence, fragmentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Carbs. So we started the panel discussion discussing safe lending or safe spaces for learning. We have many examples of how that's done, but we also talked about risk-taking and failing forward and failing fast, but putting in the guardrails and getting the basics right. We talked about that learning should be meaningful, it should lead to economic opportunity, but it should also lead to human self-actualization and should be fun. And we also talked about other issues such as resilience and how we can work in partnership with the public sector, being private sector actors, and also just inspiring those around us to take action with well-designed and well-measured interventions. So with that, please join me in thanking Carmina, Attorney Geraldine, and Dr. Pei. Kathy, back to you.
Of course, thank you so much, Tony, and to our panelists for giving us hope. And if I may, more hope in all our learning journeys, both as educators and co-learners ourselves, in increasing employability as well as income progression. And yes, learning should be fun. Did everybody have fun over the last 45 minutes? Because that's what we've done and what we've been doing over the past 1.5 days. We still have the back half of this day, but that was this morning's plenary session. That's done and over with. We're going to have a nice lunch, and I'd have you back here by about 1:45 on the dot, shall we? And get on with the last half of our 2-day AFES 2025. Have a great lunch, and I'll see you then.